Hello, it's me, Kerbinaut here, and today we're going to be doing another episode of A Kerbinaut's Guide to the Solar System, the series in which I shall be flying around the solar system in spacecraft that I have built, such as this little thing right here. So it's going to be quite fun. This is episode 2. In episode 1 we looked at how to build an interplanetary spacecraft, and I said that I may take a look at some lifter designs. However, I think I might just do another episode of lifter designs just off on a completely other tangent, nothing to do with this series, so we can skip that for now. However, in this episode what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be launching this up along with the other 2 spacecraft that I designed last episode, and I'm going to be docking them all together in orbit. So hopefully today, and at the end of today, you will have learned how to orbit a spacecraft and how to dock spacecraft together in orbit. So yeah, let's just get right into it. Okay, so this first spacecraft here is the Tug, the Interplanetary Tug that I designed last episode. You can go check that out. Link in the description, sorry. And we are going to now take this into orbit. So let's just go ahead and do that now. So let's walk you through the very basics. Now, I did do a video on just the basics of flying your spacecraft in Kerbal Space Program, but let's just have a look at it again. So we're going to want to turn on our SAS, that's the Stability Assistance System, and we're going to want to turn that on by pressing the key T. That's T, letter T. Tango, or if you don't like tango, I'm sure you can think of something else. I'm not too fond of tango, but I can't tango. Now, if you have RCS on a ship, you will maybe want to turn on RCS by pressing R. You can toggle these, so R and T. I usually only keep our SAS on. I don't usually need RCS, and you can kind of hold F to temporarily turn on or off SAS depending on its original state. So F is your kind of temporary on or off key, although the new update in 0.21 kind of renders the F key inert. I mean, it doesn't really do anything because you no longer need to turn on or off the SAS system temporarily, because you would only really use that for turning, and now the SAS system is designed so that when you turn, it automatically turns off SAS. Anyway, enough of my babbling on, we're going to get straight into this. Next step is throttling up to about 30%. The reason why you're not wanting to throttle up full, unless you've got a very heavy rocket, is because you don't want to go too fast and waste fuel at this point. So the reason why you might waste fuel is because of air resistance. There is a terminal velocity in this game at certain heights. That terminal velocity decreases the higher you get, and so the faster you can go at higher altitudes. However, at the lower altitudes, so up here in this atmosphere bar, this light blue area, you're going to want to maybe keep it at about 100 to 120 meters per second, roughly, and then after that, go ahead and pump it to full, unless you're trying to be wary of not ripping your ship to shreds, because there are certain ships that will get torn to shreds if you put it on full. Anyway, so yeah, it's up to about half, and then press the spacebar to start your stage. And that is us lifting off. Now, you don't need to do anything at all at this first point. For me, all I have to do is wait for these solid fuel rockets to run out, and I can see their state, the fuel that they have left over here on the left-hand side, where the fuel will be running down. You can see I'm getting up to about 150 meters per second here, so I'm just going to throttle back a wee bit, make sure I don't need to waste any fuel. And that is the solid fuel rockets now gone. So I'm throttling up to almost full, just between 1/3 and full, And we're going to now have to do our gravity turn. The gravity turn is the part that will start actually getting you to orbit. There's two main parts in orbit. One is the ascent and one is the gravity turn. The gravity turn is very important, just FYI. Ah, I see we have a slight problem here. It's a bit of a weird problem I've got. It's twisting, contorting magically. But no problem, SAS will hold it steady. And I'm going to have to stage again just to get rid of those rockets. And tilting over. Now the gravity turn just allows you to speed up laterally as opposed to vertically, because orbit, you don't just go up into space and then woo, you're in space and in orbit. No, to get into orbit you need to speed up laterally as well. It means sideways. So that is me. You can see my surface velocity is up to about 600 meters a second. I'm going to go to map view by pressing M, and we can have a look here, have a look at the apoapsis height right there, and of course we can control it via the nav ball down here. I'm now going to wait until my apoapsis is up at about 100 kilometers, and just FYI, you want to keep this time going up. It's always good for that time to keep going up. Okay, so we're just about to reach this, and I'm going to press the X key to cut my engines off. There we go. Let's have a look at how much fuel we have left. I don't think we're going to have too much. No, we don't. But that is fine, because I'm sure we will have more than enough to finish this orbit. So this is what your kind of suborbital trajectory will be looking like at this first stage, and that's fine. Don't worry, you're not going to crash into the ground, because what you're going to do... sorry. Is you're going to make another burn at your apoapsis. Now, you can say set a maneuver if you like. I usually don't, if I'm being honest, just because I don't like setting maneuvers. I don't know. Voice break. There we go. So that's going to be about 100 in there. About 100. So we're good. Now, let's just go around to our node, which will be down here on our nav ball, and we just wait it out. And we wait till we get to our node, and then we burn. As a side note, you will want to burn about halfway. So what you want to do is you want to start your burn at T minus 10 seconds. That will make sure that you evenly spread your burn between before and after, because the node assumes that delta V that you're putting in is all instantaneous. It assumes that you speed up instantaneously, and obviously that is completely untrue or false. You simply just can't do that. So what we do is we spread the burn over the node so that we get the most accurate burn possible. With 10 seconds left, I'm going to be starting my burn. So let's just do this now then. And you should be fine just to go into this view here, simply because you've got your node. I'm just wary of how much fuel I have left. Right, okay. That's just getting close now, I just don't want to overshoot. 74, 80, 90, 8, and... yeah, so that's fine. There we go. So that's how you get into orbit. You launch, you do a gravity turn, and then you do your final burn at your apoapsis, and that should get you into orbit. Next stage, for me anyway, is deorbiting my lifter. Now this might not be the same for you. You could just obviously ditch your lifter in space, but I like to be a little bit, well, clean. To say the least. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to deorbit this, and I'm going to switch to that debris there by pressing the square bracket key. Now you can see up in the top right hand corner my electric charge is going down, and that's because I don't have a battery, I don't have any form of power, and my little drone here is using power. And so after this is gone, I will no longer have control over this thing. And so I'm trying to do this relatively quickly, just so that I can get this out of orbit without losing control of it completely. Right, so we're close enough to the retrograde marker that I can turn on this engine. As soon as this engine comes on, by the way, this will start going up again. You'll see, because the engine does produce electricity. And there we go, that's us out of power, but we should be deorbited right there, you can see. If we switch back, oh, we can't, we're too far away, so we're going to have to say switch to, of course I have to cut my throttle, and that's this thing in orbit, that's it, done. Okay, but before we start launching up another rocket to dock with this, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to point it to the north or south marker. This south marker is just closer to where I was, and so I'm just going to get that nicely on there. Another reason we're doing that is because as this orbits around, if we had it pointing in any other direction, the docking port would change position constantly. So as opposed to having that, what I'm doing is I'm just making it change orientation. Well, not orientation, I don't know what to call it. It's rotating, really. You'll see if I do this, if I speed up, you'll see it'll be rotating in the reference frame of the planet. Whereas if I had it, say up here, it would be going round like this, and it would be completely changing. And that just is generally, you want to point it north or south. Well, this actually depends on the inclination of your orbit, I believe. So if you have an orbit with a very high inclination, the place where it will be rotating is different. If you wanted, you could use MechJeb to find it on certain orbits, but to keep things simple, let's just say 180 or 90 degrees on this one anyway. Right, so now that we've done that, this precursor to docking, we're going to launch up the next thing, which will be our lander, our interplanetary heavy lander. Okay, so you will notice on this spacecraft that if you look down at the nav ball, it is not blue, it's brown, and that is simply because we're facing down the way. Now, you might be asking yourself, wait a second, you're not facing down the way, you're facing up the way. But it is because we are controlling the vessel from the cockpit, which is part of my payload, which I designed to be launched upside down. For reasons that I will not get into right now, but if you look in my earlier episode, you will find out. So all we do in this case is we go to this remote guidance unit, which I installed, and we say control from here, and that just fixes that problem right away. Just double clicking to reorientate my camera. Double clicking the mouse wheel, by the way. So same thing again, we just go through this, and this is asparagus staging, and so every time that fuel runs out in one of these, I'm going to drop the stage, and it's going to move on to the next one, and we'll drop the stage, and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to do the exact same thing, so SAS on, throttle up to about 1/3, and turn on the engines. And I'm just going to do exactly the same thing as I did last time. I will meet you once I am in orbit, and then we'll get into how to dock with other spacecraft. As a side note for this specific craft, you'll notice I'm not going to full throttle, and I am doing that because in earlier testing I've realized that this design is a little bit unstable when you go to full throttle, and so just to be on the safe side, I am not going to be going to full throttle on this spacecraft. And while I am getting this apoapsis up to 100 kilometers, I don't actually need to look at the apoapsis meter to tell me, because I know that this one's in a 100 kilometer orbit, so all I have to do really is cut it when it gets to there. And I don't really need to know that that is up 100, because there it is, it's at 100, because this is a 100 kilometer orbit right here. Now I'm going to start this burn early because I know that this is wrong, because these things do not have a thing of fuel in it. You'll see that automatically goes up. And because of that, my node is now going to be off by a little bit, so I'm going to have to go into map view and moderate that as I do my burn. The way I like to do this is by keeping my apoaps just a wee bit ahead of me by tilting up ever so slightly off the horizon. And then if it gets too far ahead of me, you tilt a little down, and that brings it close to you. You just want to keep your apoapses on top of you for the entirety of this burn, right until it flips. And I think I'm getting close to that flipping point right now. Good stuff. Okay, so now that we're in orbit, I'm going to show you how to dock, how to rendezvous and dock. So, first thing is first, let's select this as our target. Now you'll see a whole bunch of things come up. We've got these markers here, and then we have this AN and DN marker there and there. Now, first of all, we want to pay attention to the AN and DN markers. These stand for ascending node and descending node. This is to do with your inclination. Your inclination is the angle of difference between the two orbits. So you'll see here the target orbit, which is in yellow, is kind of normal. And then the blue orbit, which is our orbit, is a little bit off that. So what we have to do is we have to make these orbits the same, or else we're not going to get a good docking. So what I'm going to do is I am going to look at my thing and see which node is next. Now, to make your burn for changing inclination, which is what we're about to do here, most efficient, you're going to want to do it at the furthest away node, if I'm correct, for the highest node. So if this node was here and this node was way out here, we'd want to do it at this node here, even though we may be closer to this one, just because it saves fuel. However, in this instance, because it's a relatively circular orbit, it doesn't really matter, and so we're just going to do it at this node over here. Not because it's high or low, just because it's the next one up. So let's take a look at this. This is our descending node, which means we're going down, which means to correct this inclination, we're going to have to point up, and up means we're going to have to point north. So let's find the north marker on our nav ball and point to it. Now remember, if you're going to be going north to south, it doesn't matter where you go beforehand, because all you will be doing is you're going to be rotating. You're not going to be coming off of the north or south marker. You're just going to be rotating. So, oh, what have I done? No, haha. There is time warp coming to save me. Right, okay, so there we go, we're on the north marker. Now we can warp around until we get to our descending node. Okay, so if you're a little unsure about doing this without a node to help you out, I would suggest just getting a node, setting a node in there, saying make a new node, and just do that, because if you are a wee bit nervous about that, that's completely fine. Just go ahead and make a node. It makes almost no difference whatsoever. I just know what to do here, so you don't need a node, but if you want to use one, go ahead, if it makes things easier for you. Now you'll know your inclination is fine when these nodes just start swapping. So let's take a look, 0.1, and there you go. There you go. Now it'll say 0.0, and although that is good, if you wanted to be a perfectionist, you can get it down to NaN. which is a fancy way of saying, boy oh boy, you're good at doing inclination changes. Okay, right, so now that we've done an inclination change, we're on the same plane as our target, as it's called. We're going to want to do what's called getting into what is it called actually? It's a phasing orbit, yes, a phasing orbit. Now what a phasing orbit is going to do is it means that we're going to catch up to, or let it catch up to us. In this case, it is a little bit behind us, so the best thing to do would be to slow down and let it catch up to us. Now, physics-wise, slowing down in orbit does not suddenly mean pointing retrograde and you're going to stay in the same orbit, because it doesn't work like that. Funnily enough, you have to burn prograde. You have to speed up to slow down. It's strange that, but that is the way it works. What's going to happen is you're going to burn prograde, and what that's going to do for you is it's going to... Oh, that's the retrograde marker I've been moving towards. It's going to increase your orbit height. Now, by increasing your orbit height, you are going to be slowing yourself down. That's how it works. The higher your orbit, the slower your orbit. And so, we are going to burn prograde to slow ourselves down. So, let's do this now. You'll see these little markers keep moving. Now, if you have a lot of fuel, if you don't want to be too efficient, you can just burn prograde all the way, and you'll see these markers getting closer and closer and closer. And sooner or later, there will cease to be 2 markers, and there should just end up being just the 1. I've just forgotten to turn SAS on here, right? Okay, so you see these 2 purple markers are getting quite close. That is what we want. So I'm going to cut the engines there, and we're going to just fine-tune this. So, turn it on a wee bit, and stop. And yeah, so that's nice and close now. So that is what we call a close encounter. These markers are your encounters, if I forgot to mention that. So these are your closest encounters to your target. You get these also when you're transferring to other planets, although I'll leave that to another episode. So we've done our inclination change. We've got into our phasing orbit. We now have our intersect with our target, so we're going to go for that. So we warp around. Now we have to be wary, because at this point here we are going to be coming in quite fast, and so we're going to want to be ready to slow down, and I am terrible at doing that. And you also don't want to miss that encounter. So you'll see here, even if you're not looking at these encounters, you can see we are getting closer and closer to this target. A good way to look at this is to change this little speed marker down here on your nav ball. Click on it, click on it again, and you will get to your target marker. This is your relative velocity relative to your target, and this is going to be extremely useful when trying to dock. So switch it to target and keep it on target for the rest of the time. Now I'm gonna have to put on RCS here to help out with this turning, because I've left it too late as usual, because I am terrible at this. Right. So we have gotten in close. We can ignore map view now. Map view is no longer being helpful. At this kind of distance to our target, map view is of no use whatsoever. It's all to do with what we are seeing here and our nav ball. So at this point, I would advise strongly, very strongly, that you look at your nav ball. Your nav ball is going to be your main source of information and stuff. So if you look at your nav ball here, the purple dot with the circle in it is your target, and the yellow thing is your prograde, and well, Yeah, prograde. In this case, it's relative to your target, and the yellow one with the cross through it is your retrograde. You'll see that my prograde is somewhere near my target, which means I'm going towards my target. So there's just a little crash course in navball stuff. But you'll also see it's now drifting away slowly. So what I am going to do now, I'm going to kill this velocity here. So RCS controls, I have just forgotten here, it's H and N to go back and forward, so I'm going to press H to kill all this relative velocity. There we go. And N is basically a retro velocity thing. H goes forward, N goes backward, and then it's I, J, K, and L for your lateral controls. I'm just going to use the J key here to to bring this prograde marker closer to our target marker. Right, now we're getting pretty close now. So let's kill this velocity by pressing the N key. Right, so that's a meter per second, which is fine. Now, let's have a look at where we're docking. We're going to dock to this Clampotron docking port here. So we're going to right click it and say set as target. We're then going to go parallel to it, because remember what we did here? We pointed this to the south, and so we're going to point this craft to the north. And that is why it is very useful. It means you know which direction you're pointing. Now it's kind of a matter of eyeballing it, or what you could do is you could change your camera view to chase by pressing the V button. The V button for vector, velocity, vile, fruit twist. That is the button for your camera view. And that will put you into chase mode, which is quite helpful because it makes the I, J, and K keys, I, J, K, and L keys a lot more relevant. So let's just go up a bit here, like so. So I'm going up by pressing the K. Now this is just translating up, by the way. Oh, you can see we are pretty close to it. So I'm going to back off by pressing the N key. So I'm backing off. Now I'm going to kill this vertical velocity, as it were, or relative vertical velocity, should I say, by pressing the I key. And go forward a wee bit. Kill some velocity. Okay, good. Now this is the point where it starts to come down to the velocity markers on your nav balls. So at this point I'm just looking at the velocity markers. So I don't need to look at this here, although I'll just keep that here for you. I'm looking down here on my nav ball. So I want to get this target marker over me. And I do that by moving this velocity marker between the target and my marker, my directional marker, and then line all three of them up and you will get a dock. So you're lining all three of them up down here, and that means that you are heading towards this thing. So that's me docked. I lined those three up and came in for a lovely docking. So there we go, that's how to dock right there. Feel free to go back and have a look at that. I'm now going to do the same sort of thing with the fuel module that we had built last episode. So we're going to attach it onto the bottom here to fuel our thing. This thing here, you know, the tug. We're going to launch that up now. As a side note for docking anyway, if you want to save fuel by not doing the phase in orbit stage, what you could do is you could wait till your target is somewhere about here, and then you can launch up and you will roughly get in the same area as your target. Okay, so you can see here that I've just got a intersection right here like I did last time, and so we're just going to go straight for that. Make sure my periaps is simply above that 70 kilometer height. Yep, that 70 kilometers is very important because it's the height of the atmosphere, and so you don't want to kind of accidentally crash. Okay, now I want to go up. And then we are going to point north. Or south, I guess, depending on which way we're looking. Gonna swap into chase view, just for the sake of swapping into chase view. And now we can do our docking procedure as we did last time. And that should be us. Yep, there we go. So that's us docked on our fuel module. Okay, folks, so there we go. We have officially docked on all of the modules that we needed to. If I need another fuel module, I can, at any point, I can simply just send up another fuel module and dock it onto the bottom of this one, and that will work completely fine, and it will be good. But that is the end of this episode now. Thank you very much for watching. If you've learned anything, good. I am happy that you've learned something. So give it a thumbs up, and comment if you have any questions. Yeah, there you go. So next episode I will be just launching up another fuel module, I think, sticking it on the end of this, and then we can talk about getting to other planets and how to do that. Until then, folks, so have a great day. Bye bye.